My dear students, we have come back with a new class, with a new concept. In the last class, we have add to vectors. In today's class, we are going to do the opposite direction, opposite process, that is the resolution of vector. Look, in the last class, what we do, for example, this one is a vector and this one is another vector. We have taken the resultant, this one. Now, for example, this 2 is vanishes. This 2 is vanishes. Only this vector remains. So how can I divide these vectors in components? Actually, this vector can be divided into number of components. But the most important is that we will divide the vector into 2 perpendicular components. Two perpendicular components. So now what we have to do? Let's think these 2 vectors are acting perpendicularly. These 2 vectors are acting perpendicularly. So how can we get the resultant? Complete the parallelogram. Complete the parallelogram. This one will be a rectangle and the diagonal. And the diagonal will be the resultant vector. Now, if these 2 vanishes, then how can I get back these 2 components? The process is that on this point, draw a horizontal axis and draw a vertical axis. Draw a vertical axis. So what is this? The length, for example, this one is OC. The length of OC indicates the magnitude of this vector. The length OC indicates the magnitude of this vector. Okay? And the direction, for example, is making an angle of theta with the horizontal axis. You can call it as x-axis, and we can call this one as y-axis. And this vector is making an angle of theta with x-axis. Okay? So I want to know the horizontal component of this vector and the vertical component of this vector. So for this, what can we do? We can draw a perpendicular line from C on x-axis. It intersects a length. We can say this length is OA. So this length OA indicates the magnitude of the horizontal component of, let us consider this vector is R vector of R vector. At the same process, if you draw a perpendicular line from C point on y-axis, let us think that it intersect at point B. So OB is the magnitude. This one is the magnitude. This one is the magnitude of vertical component. Vertical component of R vector. Okay? Now, how can I get the value of OA? Look, this is the hypotenuse and we have calculated we have to calculate the base. So, okay. So let us take cos theta. So cos theta is equals to what? It is adjacent divided by hypotenuse. So adjacent is OA and the hypotenuse is OC. So we can write down OA is equals to OC cos theta. OC cos theta. Okay, so the length of OC is the magnitude of R vector. So OC can be denoted by R into cos theta. And OA is the OA is the horizontal component of R vector. So we can denote it by Rx. So this OA is equals to R cos theta. We can denote it by Rx. We can denote it by Rx. So this vector is divided into two components. This one is the horizontal component OA and OB is the vertical component. Okay, so what we get the horizontal component. So how can we get the vertical component? Look, if this length indicates the vertical component OB, it is denoted by RY. Let us denote it by RY. If it is RY, AC will also be RY because they are the rectangles and opposite arms of rectangles are equal. So now let us take to calculate. We need the opposite arm and we know the hypotenuse. So we can take the ratio, sine ratio, right? So what we can write, sine theta equals to what? Sine theta is equals to adjacent AC divided by hypotenuse OC. Okay, so OC equals to AC equals to what? AC is equals to OC sine theta. And OC, this is the what I have mentioned before. This is the this length is the magnitude of the resultant R or R vector. So this is R sine theta. Okay, and AC is the vertical component. We can denote it by RY. Denote it by RY. So what happens? This one is the horizontal component and this one is the vertical component. Rx, this one is equals to Rx. Rx is the horizontal component and this one is the vertical component. So in today's class, I have isolated a vector into two perpendicular components. For solving problems from the next chapters, okay, this formula is very vital. Very vital. Look for shortcut memorization, quick recall. That's the technique. Technique is very important for the classes. So there is a technique. If this one is the vector and it is isolated into two components, quick isolated into two components. If it makes an angle theta with this arm, and if it is A, it will be A cos theta. That means the component with which the angle will be produced, that component will be the cos theta and another component will be the sin theta. Here, on the other hand, look, if this one is the vector A and it makes an angle theta with this arm, then it will be A cos theta and this one will be A sin theta. I think the concept is clear to all. Thank you very much for joining to this next class. In the next class, we will solve some mathematical problems regarding this concept. Thank you very much.